One of his first major commissions in the early mid-80s, 1984, is the Hollenbeck Hotel, which we'll talk about very soon. But his first commission was the Clifton Hotel at Temple on Broadway, about 81. So he arrives for the boom back in the days when all we really had in Los Angeles was we ran from down Main Street from the Plaza to about 4th. The idea that he would build this hotel in '84 out at Second Spring was total madness. Actually, at that time it was the culture of dry goods with the top. And the only architects here were, of course, Kaiser and Morgan, and I think Charles Davis. Perfect. There's Friedrich Nietzsche's brother now. And so he begins getting these magnificent commissions because he proves himself very early on, because he's also a contractor. And he was known for riding around town on a Mexican burro because he had so many commissions going at once, he needed to get to all of his building sites efficiently. And he was often noted for cutting his burro's lunch hours short. And the burro didn't like this. That was noted in the papers constantly. And he was a very, very naughty man for not feeding the burro properly. Always feed your burro properly, or the PETA of the 1880s will get after you. Now, so here's a caricature of Young, and there's a photo of the man himself, God bless him, and his patron, O.T. Johnson.
What are you talking about, O.T. Johnson?
Let's talk about O.T. Johnson.
Thank you, Nathan. All right, so we're going to look at a couple buildings by Robert Brown Young today. Two of which were commissioned by this gentleman, Orson Thomas Johnson. Orson Thomas Johnson was a philanthropist and civic leader, forgotten to us today. He, just very quickly from the LAPO biographical file, born 1839 on a farm in Illinois. While a teen, he worked as a clerk in a general store. At 21, he became manager of a store in Illinois, and in 1870, he moved to Riverside, and he worked in Riverside. He started a bunch of businesses, became involved in political life, and in 1890, he permanently moved to Los Angeles to live. From that point, from the late 1880s, Mr. Johnson, grapes, citrus, basic agriculture. He had a younger brother, AP. We've yet to figure out what AP Johnson's full name was, and I've actually asked 5 citrus scholars. His younger brother, AP Johnson, was a state senator, so this is a very well-connected family. We're going to look at some buildings that Johnson built that Robert Young built for Mr. Johnson, and just really, really important guy, and completely unknown to us today. So, just done.
Do you have any idea how he stayed out of the Civil War? He was in his 20s.
That's a really good question, yeah. Let's see. In 1860, he was 21 years of age. I don't know how he avoided the draft.
If you had money then, you could buy your way out for $300.
Yeah, the question is, how did Orson Thomas Johnson, who was 21 in 1861, avoid being drafted? He was in Illinois, so that would have been a Union state. So how did he?
Almost anybody in that would have been in the war or else hired a substitute.
John, I'm going to look into this and find out for you. That's a really good question. I've only started to work on Orson Thomas Johnson. That's a really good question.
Otis was in the Civil War. The LA Times, he was in the Civil War.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm going to give you his biographical file. You can peruse this, and maybe this might answer some questions. Okay. It says he was mayor of the town, so maybe because he was mayor. Good question. That's what we give these first. Nathan, let's start looking at slides.
It's because craven Yankees are too scared to go down to Virginia and fight Johnny Reb. That's why.
You have to dance when you say that.
Tell us about this slide.
He actually wasn't very far from Grant's hometown of Galena.
So when I was talking about his first great commission, not the Westminster, the Hollenbeck.
Pop in the microphone.
The Hollenbeck Hotel at 2nd and Spring, one of the,
Is this building here anymore?
best known and best photographed, best loved places in the world. This is its original incarnation as a 2-story building. No, fortunately not. By the mid-1930s, all of its grandeur had faded a bit, and they said it would be much better as a parking lot. And I think you can park on it to this day. So please do remember that when you set your parking brake. Whoops, it is. And then this in the late about 88, 89 is what they do in the quote-unquote aforementioned San Francisco style when Young was asked to enlarge it into a major hotel. If you know the area, 2nd and Spring, for example, this then is the 1949 white modern rolling coat LA Times building. Right. So the 1934 Times, so the Times building is here, and this then is that parking lot. Yeah, in the 30s they were having trouble keeping all of its rooms filled, and so it. Now, 4th and Main, one of the great corners of all Los Angeles. It's got what is it? It's got the Farmers and Merchants. It's got the Barclay. It's got the San Fernando building, and it would be a great corner if we still had this. But this was the Westminster, which O.T. Johnson. This is the O.T. Johnson building #1, the first O.T. Johnson building that he said, "Hey, Young, you're okay. You built that Hollenbeck Hotel. Build me something." So we built this at 4th and Main, which actually stayed all the way through to the late 50s. 1960. Sorry?
Which corner would that be?
This is on the.
The Merchants Bank is on.
Yeah, this is across the street. So this is the one where they just built these
This
new
is the
lofts. This is the northeast corner. That's correct.
This is where that really ugly modern building is now. Yeah.
So the photographer's actually standing at
photo
the
would
thing.
have been standing in front of Farmers and Merchants Bank.
So you can see Young definitely had a style. The bays, corner tower, and this was said to have like the grandest marble staircase in all of Los Angeles, but it couldn't stay either because the Wilson block, First and where's the across from the Nantucket? First and Broadway, First and Spring.
First and Spring. Where police headquarters is now.
Which police headquarters, don't say Parker Center, because Parker was a bad man, where the new police headquarters is now. This actually stayed around for quite some time because they knocked it down to 1 floor, but again, this was not a O.T. Johnson? Or Wilson Block? No, that's why it's called the Wilson Block. Yeah,
different paper. Oh, wait, hold on. The Westminster Hotel is gone, but it sort of survives because Milt Larson of the Magic Castle was involved in the demolition and pulled a lot of stuff out of the Westminster, and it's now in the Magic Castle. So if you go to the Magic Castle, a lot of the ornament you see comes out of the Westminster.
Yeah. So, 1889, same year as the Hollenbeck. This is the Slauson block. This is just over here at 4th, now replaced by part of the Broadway department store that runs along Broadway south of 4th. Patron being Slauson, of course. I think that was 1890, 94. The Wilson block, we will go out and espy this our very selves. Richard and I have been cogitating about whether or not and the Slauson block, therefore, is just to our right, which is 419 to 421 South Broadway, and that is, so like 425 to 429 South Broadway. And we've been trying to figure out if its original structure is under there and just redone. The massing is correct, the fenestration isn't, so.
I thought I had a photo today, but we'll be there soon enough.
We'll be there in like 20 minutes, standing up there. And,
okay.
I've got this, so we'll be standing there going, Ricardo,
So this is the northeast corner of 4th and Broadway. We're going there second. We're going to look at 510 South Broadway first, and then we're going to walk up to 4th and Broadway. So this is looking south on Broadway.
Was that the Mason?
So this building is still here, and this building is still here.
Well,
Sort of. This building is gone, and the Showmoffs are going to build a 30-story mixed-use development on top of it. But we're going to make Eric put up a plaque for the Mason building.
Okay, so all 3 buildings you see in this photo were built by, 2 of them were built by Robert Brown Young.
So this is Robert Brown Young, 1896. This is John Parkinson, 1902. And this is the Mason block. This is Robert Brown Young. Also, this is 1892.
later.
Oh, okay. I'll let you look that data.
So what's interesting, and I wanted to talk about this, is so these 2 buildings, the one on the left and one on the right. The tall one is John Parkinson, 1902. This building is really the death of Robert Brown Young as an architect in Los Angeles. John Parkinson, who is this premier public architect of Los Angeles, by 1904 has cornered the market on big buildings in Los Angeles, and Robert Brown Young loses the battle to him. O.T. Johnson has Robert Brown Young build the building on the left, the O.T. Johnson block number 4, which is 1896, and then 6 years later, O.T. Johnson hires John Parkinson to build the corner building, a 7-story building, and that basically, Johnson is throwing his weight behind Parkinson, and Robert Johnson has lost this. So if you think things were bad with architects today and commissions, it's exactly the same 100 years ago. So John Parkinson then gets the commission, and Parkinson's star rises. Young gets into a fist fight with the contractor at the Lancashire Hotel a couple years later in 1905, 1906, and is never really quite the same.
Not the Lancashire Hotel, I think at the Lancashire building.
Oh, the Lancashire building, right. Okay, we'll keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, he falls off a streetcar, he gets into a fist fight.
Did he conjure up Babylon though?
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this. So what's really interesting, and I'll bring this up at the corner, this is, I said that Orson Thomas Johnson had a younger brother, A.P. We don't know his full name. So it's interesting. Okay, so this is a drawing of a 7-story building. Gordon, do you want to push the slide back one? Okay, so what happened is, so what I think happened, so this building is built in 1902 by John Parkinson. And Gordon, pull the slide forward. Okay, in 1906, there's an article in the LA Times that Orson Thomas Johnson's baby brother, A.P., has hired Robert Brown Young to build this building in place of the John Parkinson building. It's never built. But isn't that interesting, Gordon? Do you want to go back? So I think what's happened is that Orson's younger brother buys the building and says, I want to bring Young back. I'm going to commission him to tear this building down and build a new building that he's going to design. And you get this article in the LA Times and nothing ever happens. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I also think it's kind of interesting. Do you want to go forward, Gordon, one more? Because, that's the current building today with its full 7 stories. It only has 4. One more, Gordon, I'm sorry. This is what the intersection looks like today. This is where we're going. So this is the Parkinson building, and the Brown building is all but 1 floor. This is really sad, I know. One more, Gordon. There's a happy end. Okay, so I just showed you the drawing that the younger brother wanted of Brown to do for the building that Parkinson built. This is 510 South Broadway, and I think it's a very similar design.
It is, yeah.
It's really similar design, so I think it's interesting. And this building was built in 1905, 1906. Yeah, so I think it's interesting that Robert Brown Young was building. See, here's the building today. This is 510 South Broadway. I think it's interesting that this design, which he wanted to put in to replace the Parkinson building, is a design he was already using on Broadway. It's interesting. So we'll go there, we'll look. Nathan, let's quickly have you go through some Robert Brown Young buildings, or I'll just go through them. This is the Burbank Theater. This is on Main Street at 6th, and this is the Burbank today, of course. Yay!
So that was 1893.
Yeah, 1893.
The fourth theater in Los Angeles after Hazard's the Lyceum.
So that's the parking lot. This is the Mason block. This is the other side of the street of 4th and Main. This is the Mason. This is it.
No, that's
Yeah, it's the Mason.
yeah.
Yeah. 4th and southeast corner, 4th and Broadway. We'll be there in a minute. Yep, very sad. This is the Lancashire Hotel, just down the street, and of course this is what's there today. So what's really sad is that the Lancashire Hotel, Nathan, what, this made it to 1991?
Yeah.
This building was intact till 1991.
No.
No,
Yes,
you're right.
no, it was-
Yeah, they took down a couple.
After Silmar, they
After Silmar, they took off a couple floors. Yeah, but we've seen photos at the Seaver Center that date from 1990, and it looks pretty intact. Very sad. That's
Clifton's.
yeah. So Clifton's, Andrew Myron just took the scaffolding off of Clifton's. We're gonna go look at it. I don't know when it'll open, but the scaffolding's off, and that's Robert Brown Young building.
Great, looks very much.
Oh yeah, again stuff that people recognize. This is the Leonid. You don't know this hotel unless you do, because this is the Leonid today, right? This is Main Street, right? Where's the place that sells the bacon donuts?
A little bit down.
The Nickel, the Nickel's just down here. Leonid's still here.
Yeah.
So Robert Brown Young is everywhere, and
It's overshadowed by the Charnock block, but
Yeah.
So you see Robert Brown Young working in this extremely. Wait, did we skip over?
I did. We gotta get going.
Wait,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I think is interesting about the community is that you see Young working in this really spare style. I think you see it best in 510, the faux pettibone. I mean, I'll talk a little bit more about it on the street because I think it's one of his best preserved buildings, and about how amazingly modern it is. This is amazingly preserved.
That's practically an Irving Gill.
It's practically an Irving Gill. It's super modern.
Aside from
We're gonna
that
talk a
damn
lot
pediment.
More about this. Okay, yeah, we can skip through, I guess, the rest of it to get on
This
the
is the
road.
photo from the 40s.
Yeah, so he would left. So the sort of thing that you see on the Lancashire, not the Lancashire Hotel, but the Lancashire block, with its corner towers and the whole
This is the
whole guns
Lancashire
fish tower.
building.
Yeah, it's the Lancashire building. It's already got popped in the nose, which then had this sort of unfortunate 2 stories added to it, not his most effective work. And then of course next door,
Yeah.
which people
This is
assume-
the Palace Theater.
people say is a Landsberg. It is not. Be disabused of that concept now and forevermore. Thank you.
Nathan, do you have Mr. Young tattooed on you anywhere?
So I like to, Robert Brown Young is the most iconic architect in Los Angeles. This is one of his last commissions, and everyone knows this building, right? Right? Everyone knows Robert Brown Young, right? This is off the 10 freeway. Everyone sees this every time they drive on the 10 freeway through downtown. It's the Young Apartments, 1621.
Okay.
So, let's get started. Nathan, I think we agreed. It's very good news. Nathan, I think we agreed I'm going to break down the slide projector, and you're going to take people across the street to the west side of the street and show them Clifton's.
Awesome.
Because Clifton's, the scaffolding is off. It's a Robert Brown Young building, and we want to go talk about it. So once we talk about Clifton's, we'll walk up
All of
towards...
this, and we can go.
We'll walk up to 5th and we'll talk about 510 South Broadway, and then we'll walk up to 4th and Broadway and we'll talk about the Johnson block and the Johnson building and his baby brother and John Parkinson's ascendancy.
Wilson block.
And yeah,
All right, andiamo.
Okay, so follow Nathan and I'll catch up with everyone in a couple minutes. And Nathan, I've got the tablet, so we'll use the tablet to show them. But I thought it's easier to show people stuff.
Yeah, what's all this mission?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to go across the street in a second. First, I want everyone to admire, I'm sure you all are familiar with the world's greatest terrazzo sidewalk, but admire anyway. It makes me a little worried that it's got all sorts of, some new cracks and some issues here with the scaffolding that's gone on, but if you know the sidewalk and its little roundabouts that have these wonderful images, it will all come back. We will restore it. It shall return. But this is great. These are the kind of sidewalks that we worry about when they're going to bring back Broadway and widen the sidewalks, and widen the streets and the whole thing. And it makes us very nervous when we think about our terrazzo. Kim, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I could add a little something.
Is this from the 20s?
I believe this is from the 1935 ornamented Beckett remodeled facade. About that.
Yeah, the terrazzo on Broadway, you'll see it as we go around. Some of it's in better condition than others. And we've been reaching out repeatedly to the Office of Historic Resources asking, can we landmark this? And we've been told we cannot. Because it is partially public, partially private, and impedes on the public thoroughfare. Landmarking simply isn't an option, and we've been told repeatedly, don't worry, this is considered part of the contributing factors to the National Register Historic District, and bringing back Broadway is on top of everything. Well, it would be nice if we could believe that, but bringing back Broadway completely failed to notice what was going on in 735 South Broadway, a building which pulled permits, put up hoardings, and transformed a vintage Art Deco marble and gold leaf facade into a baby blue colored stucco thing. And we informed Office of Historic Resources and Bringing Back Broadway and Jose Rizar's office, and everyone was shocked. And now it's being investigated because that wasn't what the permits that were pulled for, but they did it. There's only like 12 blocks here to watch, and I don't understand why we as preservationists have to watch, but we are. The fact of the matter is, we saw this terrazzo begin to get damaged from the materials that were being put on it, the heavy materials. Terrazzo is incredibly resilient. They still do this work. In fact, the people who did this work will probably be brought back to fix it. But there's nothing to force anyone to do it, and there's nothing to stop some street services guys who decide to come and do a little work at the behest of somebody from cutting into this. There is no protection. So everyone here who cares, you know, we've all got smartphones now. Keep your eyes open, tweet stuff out. If you see something that seems to be damaged, if you see something that's troubling, you can always call the Office of Historic Resources. They will send someone there if something's happening, but they don't have a large staff. They can't be everywhere. That's what I have to say. Let's cross the street and see this though, because it's just covered and it's wonderful.
Yeah, man, you gotta take Jesus Christ, the Son of God. I'm glad that I got Jesus Christ, the Messiah. The Messiah is Jesus Christ. Make your calling and election assurance in Jesus Christ. Find the Jesus of the Bible. Find the Savior of the Bible. That's what you need in Jesus. I'm telling people there's only one heaven. Heaven is integrated in God's love. And if you're racist, you're not going to heaven. You gotta get right through Jesus Christ. He's the only man.
The show starts on the sidewalk, folks. S. Charles Lee and that guy.
He's right though. If you're racist, you're not going to heaven.
I don't know. I've read a lot of stuff in the Old Testament that's
right.
it's kind of borderline on the whole race thing.
This is pretty mild compared to the guy trying to figure it out. Guys like that.
I love it.
Nothing on the
Got it. I've always been here.
The Hittites didn't give me a calf.
Right.
Fuck
Right.
those guys.
Can I get you standing in front of it so I can frame you right on it? Because you look so good.
They are. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at one of the great R.V. Young buildings, J.E. Carr building. Now, you might recognize the building immediately to its north, the J.E. Carr building. Well, J.E. Carr needed larger accommodations for their furniture. They were actually then across the street, but it was also J.E. Carr who said, let's build this building for the Lion McKinney Smith Company, the J. Brown Music and Lion McKinney Smith, who did furniture. It looked like so. Wonderful year of our Lord, 1905. And as you can see here, everybody take a look. As you can see, it looks very much the same today. Now, why doesn't it look exactly the same? Now, some things, all this part up here looks pretty much the same. These, you notice there's little Doric capitals here, little Ionic capitals here, sheared off from the modernization. This is all a big parapet that may or may not have come off in the modernization. It may have come off in the 1949 parapet ordinance that removed a lot of parapets off the stuff. Basically, all this other stuff down there is part of the 1935 Werdeman and Beckett remodel. Because what had happened was, in 1905, when the lease went in for the furniture of the music place, everything was all good and fine until, how does it work? So the Bose Brothers cafeteria goes in here, right? And is that 31? Is that right? And then Clifford Clinton takes it over in 35, am I correct?
I'm not sure when the Bose Brothers come in, but the building existed before the Bose Brothers were there.
Well,
You're correct, they
I'm
didn't
going to
have
go
their
ahead and
home.
say that's right.
All right.
And if I'm wrong, may God strike me dead now. All right then. So Bose Brothers cafeteria moved in, and Clifford Clinton, he of Clifton's fame. You may be familiar with, for example, the Clifton's Pacific Seas at 618 South Olive, which was all in sort of tiki isn't the right word. That will connote later, but in a Polynesian South Seas. He said, this is gangbusters. I want another themed restaurant. And so they opened Clifton's Brookdale. And now who here was in Clifton's Brookdale back when it was still open? So y'all know it's all crazy redwoods and bears poking out of things and raccoons and amazing murals.
Water wheel
and water wheels and the chapel. So you could go confess your sins with a big neon cross in this little chapel that's sort of hewn from the living rock.
One of the first things damaged when the new owners came in. The neon disappeared.
And we will see what happens to it in its remodel.
I'm sure it'll come back.
I'm sure it'll come back. We'll see.
Look, there's
And-
Richard.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Richard.
And so in 2011, they closed up shop. When did they close this up? No, it wasn't that long ago. It's been a while.
2011, September 25, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christmas. The redoubtable Andrew Marin closed up shop and said, well, we're going to be open soon. Hold on. Well, maybe he bit off more than he could chew, but come on, give the guy a break. The place is huge. And so there's going to be, in theory, there's going to be a redone Clifton's Pacific Seas inside. There's going to be sort of a Polynesian bar. There's going to be a, what did we hear one time from one of the security guards? Like a reggae bar?
We heard reggae bar.
Reggae bar.
We were told reggae bar.
I know. Oh, I see sneers all around. That's good. But we'll see. So hopefully they just pulled off the scaffolding, which is a good sign. They haven't done anything egregiously terrifying to any of the windows.
You know what they're going to do with the upper stories?
What else have we heard about upper stories?
Multiple bars. Multiple theme bars.
Multiple bars.
All the way
Basically, it'll be like, Auschwitz theme bar. Who knows what's hip with the kids today? I don't know. Something in bad taste. I don't know. Gee, see, Richard, you walk away for 5 minutes, I'm already
Talking about
offending
Auschwitz.
everybody. Okay. Richard, what else can we say about Clifford Clinton? What was it at Third and Hill that he opened his Depression era
Come up here. Come up here.
in the George Wyman designed Conservative Life building? No, that was Traded Williams.
Across the street. Okay, so
What's that? Tell us about the
1931, Pacific Seas opened 6th and Olive. That closes in the early 60s. This opens in 35. By 34, Clifford Clinton had made a name for himself, and he wanted to open a penny cafeteria. He wanted to open a restaurant that for 1 penny you could get a bowl of soup and a roll. And the health department said, no, you can't do it. And he had to petition the county board of supervisors. And John Anson Ford was a good friend of his. And so, as a supervisor, so he spent about a year, and he finally got permission in the health department at the southeast corner of 3rd and Hill, kitty corner from Angel's Flight. He opened up in the basement of, I'm forgetting the name of the building.
It was the Conservative Life Building. It's across from the Fable.
It is the, you're right, it's the Conservative Life Building. I don't know Wyman Building.
No, that was Trinity.
Okay, yeah.
it was Trinity.
Conservative Life Building. In the basement, he opened up a penny cafeteria. And for a penny, you could get a bowl of soup and a roll. I'm glad the scaffolding's off. You said that.
I know.
The windows are open.
The windows are open. They should. So what do you think it's gonna open?
Yeah, I don't know.
I want to go to the reggae bar.
I want to go to the reggae bar too.
All right, there probably won't be a reggae bar. That's
I
good,
think there is going to be a reggae bar.
Why wouldn't you open a reggae bar?
We'll let this bus go. What I wanted to point out, we showed you a photo of the Lancashire Hotel, which looked like the St. Francis in San Francisco, and that was where the Carl's Jr. We'll wait for the bus to pass. It's so odd to see a bus on Broadway because the MTA took 70% of the bus traffic off of Broadway. So that was where the Lancashire Hotel was. That was Robert Brown Young. It looked like the St. Francis on Nob Hill. St. Francis is on Nob Hill, isn't it, in San Francisco? Yeah, Nob Hill, yeah.
No, Mark Hopkins. So St. Francis is Union Square.
Oh!
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks.
Francis Union Square.
Union Square, right. So this looked like the St. Francis Hotel, and this was around through 1990. That building was intact through 1990. And then they just demoed it to put in a parking lot. Happily, the building we're standing... Oh, this is another Robert Brown Young story. This is good. See, I just think of these things. That's why we're out in the street.
A lot of reasons.
Let me get you a cup of tea in a second. So, we're standing in front of the original Bullock's department store, this building, the Tahoma building, okay? This is actually, there are actually two buildings that make up this building now. To the north, one building to the north is the Hollenbeck building, and Mr. Letts took over the Hollenbeck building in 1912 and incorporated it into this Tahoma building, which is 1906. And combine them. But in 1906, John Parkinson received the commission to build this is the Tahoma building, this building right here. What's interesting is that in 1905, the Los Angeles Times printed that the investors in Bullock's had hired Robert Brown Young to build the Tahoma building. And they published drawings by Robert Brown Young in 1905 for the Tahoma building, and Bullock's was not a major component of the store. It was going to be a very small component. And then a year goes by, nothing happens, and then in 1906, big article, John Parkinson to build the Tahoma building, Bullock's is leasing the whole building. So there was, between 1905 and 1906, Robert Brown Young and the investors in Bullock's made some very big decisions. So it's kind of interesting. Bullock's was here through 1990. So yeah, Bullock's was here through Bullock's just took over this whole we spent 2 hours. Bullock's took over
It's on our YouTube
every
channel.
building on this block, up 7th to Olive, and then down.
She was asking about the Bullock's Wilshire, which I think...
Bullock's Wilshire. Bullock's Wilshire is 28.
Yeah, but
And Bullock's Wilshire was abandoned in the late 80s.
No, I pulled that after
Rodney King was 92.
So I think they pulled that after that.
Oh, my nice.
Bullock's Wilshire was open. Yeah. So that's a Robert Brown Young story. That was okay. Lancashire. I have to say this every tour. Does everyone see the blade sign for the Yorkshire Apartments? Okay, that's John Parkinson, 1904. The reason I'm bringing it up is that's where Buster Keaton's father died. Does everyone see the Yorkshire Apartments? SRO, single room occupancy. Buster Keaton's dad died there. Okay, so why did Buster Keaton's dad die there, right? Okay, so Bullock's buys basically an entire city block slowly from 1906 to 1936. For 30 years, they keep buying buildings and adding and building bridges. And in 1928, over on Hill Street, just basically the other side, at the end of this building, see where the public parking sign is? There's another building on Hill Street, just the same area. They buy the Continental Hotel. Continental Hotel is where all the vaudeville performers live. Buster Keaton's dad is a vaudeville performer. So all the 70, 80, 60, all the elderly vaudeville performers live in this 50 cent a day SRO. And they're all friends, and they hang out in the lobby all day and tell jokes, right? And all the people that ever, when Los Angeles had vaudeville, this is where you stayed. And in 1930, they kicked everyone out. Buster Keaton and several other successful actors had dads living there. They convinced the manager of the Continental, they took a financial interest and they installed the manager of the Continental at the Yorkshire Apartments. It's the only reason all the elderly vaudeville performers would move. And they said, okay, well, if we're gonna have the same manager, we'll move. And so they all moved over to the Yorkshire. And the Yorkshire became where all the old vaudeville performers lived. And that's where Joe Keaton died. Technically, he died in his wife's house in Venice, but they hadn't talked in 20 years until 2 months before he died, when she came to visit him and said, "Hey, you're just going to come home and die at the house." I don't know how happy, but she really hated him. But I agree, yeah. Okay, so that's Yorkshire. Nathan, we're going to talk about 506, 510 at South Broadway.
508 and 510.
Okay, have we talked about let's walk up to the Palace, because that's Robert Brown Young, and it's next door to where we did the salon, so we can't miss that.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah, anything.
What do you think is the oldest building we can see from here?
Palace is pretty old.
No, not as old.
Not as old. The oldest buildings on the block.
The Palace is 19th century.
Yeah, Palace.
It
There's,
might be the
Eldon
Bradbury.
Hotel. The Eldon Hotel. Okay, I'll point out the Eldon.
Is the Bradbury the oldest structure?
On the block, no. The Eldon is a couple years earlier than the Bradbury.
Okay.
And the Eldon's the yellow 3-story between Desmond's and the Mercantile. I'll point it out. It's a good question. Oldest building you can see. I think the Palace in the immediate area, because Clifton's car.
That's in the 1890s?
Yeah, late 1890s. The Palace is late 1890s. No, sorry, Palace is 1912. Palace is 1912. It is the Bradbury, but you can see other 19th century buildings from here. Looking south, I don't see any 19th century buildings.
This is really nice.
This is such shit. I hate this so much. It's so stupid. What are they doing? I don't know. What are they thinking? What are they doing? Who knows? They're going to start tearing up the terrazzo next. They're going to put in trees. They're going to actually, this one just came in. It's so stupid.
I mean, I'd like to think they have a plan, but
No, they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan. They just like... Okay, so Nathan, the Palace Theater, which is 1909, yeah.
I thought it was 12.
No, I just said that.
No, I think it is 12.
You have your notes. Yeah, it is 12 because it's LA Press Brick. LA Press Brick did the terracotta. Yes.
But I think the first drawings come out in 1909.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all okay. When do you consider a building to be
When it's released.
from? When it's released, when it opens?
When it opens.
Oh, by the way, before we go any further, can I just draw everyone's attention to this death trap, which we've all just walked around? It's really bad. It actually goes down like into the basement. Yeah.
That's Shaver's cafeteria.
As a fun,
Yeah.
that's where we just
The building we just were. Yeah. That's Shaver's cafeteria, 1928.
as I'm fond of saying, is I like to drag these things into very comfortable moments. Does life begin in conception, or does life begin at birth? Well, I think that life begins in conception, but not the actual life portion one, because I don't want to get into that topic. But when the drawings are published, when they actually break ground, then the idea is there. When it opens 3 years later, so that's why actually when you give the date of a building, you should really give the date from its the whole 2, 1, or 3 years.
And
That's very
this is important because the architect's change on this building starts with Young as the architect, and then it moves to Landsberg.
Yeah, I
So
should
this
have the
is-
drawings for that. Because everyone considers it a Landsberg, but what happens is Robert Brown Young designs the entire thing. And what happens is Landsberg comes in at the nth hour at 11:59 and says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, instead of having the two major entrances on the side with the shop right in the middle, we're going to do it the more traditional way. The entrance in the middle, shops on the side, even though there are two on the side, one of which is being covered over. But all this other stuff, all the polychrome terracotta, the massing, the fenestration, there's the four pieces, the whole thing, that's all Robert Brown Young, except Langford then added those little side lights on the side. He made the cornice a little more pronounced. But otherwise, it's Robert Brown Young. So it's one of those things that, people just got wrong. I'd say the inspiration is sort of vaguely Venetian.
It's a Beaux-Arts building. It's a Beaux-Arts vaudeville house. They conceived it as a building that would have glazed faience style. LA Press Brick did it, which is a local company.
What was the did they have an idea of who it was going to be housing, what its purpose was for?
It was the first Pantages. It was the second Pantages.
Pantages, that's it.
It was the second Pantages theater.
Pantages.
So it was a vaudeville house. I mean,
Vaudeville
it would
house.
do
Okay.
and light repertoire. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It was a theater. It was built for the Orpheum chain.
That's right.
On this tour, we explicitly don't do a lot of theater history, just because Historic Theater Foundation does a great job, and there are really good websites about that. And I could spend, we could spend a half an hour talking about the Orpheum circuit, and I'd much rather talk about Joe Keaton and the Continental. But there are really good sites about the history of the Orpheum theaters in Los Angeles. This was a chain. It was a corporate. It was a whole MO. The corporation had an MO, what they wanted. Yeah.
So and this was one of the kings of. So everybody was on that stage, and they're Sarah Bernhardt, Al Jolson,
We're going to
Rogers,
stop
Marx
at Joe
Brothers.
Keaton. We're going to stop at Joe.
But we're just talking about Joe Keaton.
All we care about is Joe Keaton. Someone asked me a very good question. What's the oldest building we can see right now? I can't see the Bradbury, which is a 3rd and Broadway, but that's probably one of the older ones. We're going to pass the Eldon Hotel, and I'll point it out when we pass. That is 1896. That's John Parkinson, and that's next block. I'll point that out. I think Broadway is a Beaux-Arts street. Beaux-Arts refers to a style of architecture from like 1904, roughly, to the end of World War I. And it's a Beaux-Arts street. So 90% of the buildings you see between 1904 and 1919.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about right.
So,
Had the same.
What's going on with the building now, though?
Oh, it's
Just been empty for ages?
Yeah. Okay, so very quickly, what happens? So there are more palaces, movie theaters, vaudeville houses on Broadway than any other place in the country, which is why it's on the historic register as a theater district, and they're all empty. Okay, all the upper floors, except for the Orpheum. God bless Steve Needleman. They're all empty. In the early 1980s, there was a huge. I'm just going to give my spiel. Okay, take a sip of tea. This is my spiel.
Make it the spiel.
Spiel away.
In the early 1980s, there was a large turnover of property on this street, and a whole new set of property owners took over. Rental of retail footage on Broadway in the 80s and 90s rivaled that of Rodeo Drive. Property owners didn't care about these upper buildings. Movie theaters had closed. Metropolitan theaters had leases on these theaters through the late 80s. They all lost them. They closed the movie theaters. They turned them into electronic boutiques. The upper floors were left empty. Property owners actually took out the entrances to the lobbies and turned the lobbies into retail space. So literally there was no way to get into the buildings except through service entrances in the back. So the storefront, the footprint on the ground was all that mattered. You could get 30, depending on how long, you could get $30,000 a month from renting out just the ground floor. So no one cared about the upper floors. The upper floors were all different for the movie theaters, for the palaces, for the vaudeville houses and movie theaters. The upper floors were designed for offices. Some of them were built for department stores. So you have a bunch down to To the south, around 8th, you have several sheet music companies and musical instrument companies down there. Pratt, Platt, and Wurlitzer. You actually had on the 5th, 6th, 7th floors auditoriums that sat 400 to 500 people. No one knows where these spaces are today. No one has any idea what's happening. So it's a real hodgepodge. But for the most part, the salient aspect, well, this is changing, which is why I get this tour. If we gave this tour 3 years ago, we could say that falling out of bed, if you said the upper floors are vacant on Broadway, you'd be right. But as we give this tour,
or they might have like telephone switching relay equipment in them.
As we give this tour and we get farther north, we're going to see all the buildings are being renovated. All these buildings, the upper floors have been vacant for 30 years. They're gutted and they're putting in apartments. So it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting.
Tiny little walks.
Bullocks that put in cars.
Thank God they saved it. Thank God.
Parking garage.
Thank God they saved it. So,
It's the world's best looking parking garage.
are there any questions? All right, let's Nathan. Why don't we go up and wait at 5th Street? And we'll, 6th Street, 6th, and we'll wait.
I'm sorry.
And I'll bring up the rear. That's a great hole.
That's a terrifying hole.
They could put a piece of steel over that. They could put a 200-pound piece of steel over that. That's only about, a 3/8 of an inch thick and tapered.
You mean like the work crew that just laid this huge length of kitty litter could have fixed that hole? That would have been nice. I don't know.
Alright, so good question. What's the oldest building we can see? The yellow building behind me is the oldest building we can see. This is the Eldon Hotel. It's John Parkinson, 1896. And
That would make a great parking lot.
Gordon will like this. So, where City Hall sits today, City Hall basically sits at the intersection of Main and Temple. Before City Hall was built, City Hall, that intersection, Main and Temple, had the Temple Block, which is actually 3 distinct buildings. An adobe, an 1840s adobe, a courthouse, anyway, 3 buildings. Basically, the footprint of City Hall is Temple Block. Temple Block, the newest building on Temple Block was a beautiful I guess it was a Richardsonian Romanesque. It was 1880s. It was this really blocky, sort of Roman building.
But sorry, I was listening to that.
The Temple Block, the third Templita, the third Temple Block, like a Richardsonian Romanesque. Really beautiful brick building. Very famously, the top floor of the Temple Block, which is the busiest intersection in Los Angeles in the 1880s, had a dentist, Dr. Perry, the painless dentist. And he had a giant sign that said, "Painless Dentist, Dr. Perry." And when they tore the Temple Block down, he took over the top 2 floors of the Eldon Hotel. And he moved his practice into the Eldon Hotel. And he took over the top 2 floors of the Eldon Hotel.
I wondered where you were going with this.
Yeah. So Dr. Perry moved into the Eldon. So in 1926, they tore down the Temple Block, and he moved into the Eldon. And that's it.
One of the nice things about the Temple Block too, when it was the courthouse, they would have cockfights there.
Yeah.
So you go watch cockfights and go get sentenced.
All right, so I think if everyone wants to come forward and look up here, so this is a really good question. What happens to upper floors on Broadway, right? So this is don't get hit. Oh, God.
Oh, Richard, no!
That's what this is for.
Yeah, to help me. Okay, we're standing in front of the original Swell-Gum department store. This is 1914. San Francisco architect whose names escape me at the moment. Anything you remember those?
Although I do know this is the site of the Robert Brown Young Richardsonian Romanesque jeweler building public market.
Right.
In like 92.
Right, 1892, which was torn down in 1912 so they could build this building. It's Train and Williams.
That's right.
This is Train and Williams. The interesting thing about this building, I believe that it's a curtain wall construction. And by that I mean the architects designed it so this beautiful ornamental wall would hang separate from the building. That it's really just, it doesn't give any structural support to the building, that they built this huge infrastructure, steel infrastructure and concrete, and then just applied the ornament. And the way they talk about it, it's like a curtain wall. If you want to look at the upper floors and uses of upper floors, what do you see? Just cardboard boxes, right? The reason this building had these giant bay windows was these used to be the display windows for the department store. So the point was they would light
really
these.
tall in those days.
No, they weren't, but they would put really big objects on display, and these wonderful bay windows were meant to be display windows, and now they're just being used for storage. So it's just a very good example of what tenants are doing with upper floor space on Broadway. They're storing stuff. I don't know what's in the Eldon. Someone's in the Eldon because the entrance is an entrance door. I don't know. This used to be Silverwood's department store. This is AC Martin. No, this is Walker and Eisen. The Desmonds is AC Martin. This is Walker and Eisen. This is 1923, 24, and Silverwood's. And they moved on to Wilshire, like Bullock's. All the department stores moved on to Wilshire. And they moved on to Wilshire in like 31, 32. And I think, isn't the Silverwoods, that's the Desmonds. Silverwoods building, the Desmonds, so that, the Payless Shoe store, that's Desmonds. The Desmonds Wilshire store is the building on Wilshire and La Brea with the Asahi beer sign on it. That's the Desmonds building, and they moved there in like 32. Anyway, Silverwoods is near there, but I forget. That's an interesting story too. All the department stores moving to Wilshire. Yeah, this used to be. I know that in the 80s, I saw an interview that artists were renting out the whole floor. They were renting out whole floors to artists as studio space for like 10 cents a square foot. So you could go ahead.
Those department stores didn't abandon these locations.
No, they just opened up branches on Wilshire. Yeah. Okay, let's get Nathan. Why don't we go to 510? Take us to 510.
Hey, Stephen G started doing tours?
No.
What?
Did you see him giving tours?
I want to go on one.
Busy.
I'm referring to the man who wrote the book on Parkinson, which if you don't have it, you should get because it's awesome. Parkinson is awesome. Hey, look, it's the Broadway Arcade Building.
Hello, Broadway Arcade Building.
Lovely Broadway Arcade Building. That was built by San Francisco.
Oh, I'm sorry to report someone's tagged the windows here. Oh, looks like they cleaned them. That's good.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, thank goodness. Well, no, still tagged. See that blue tag? 3 windows up?
3 windows up. Yeah, look at that. They went in and
Yeah,
tagged the
someone
windows.
tagged it.
Wow.
Incredibly gorgeous.
Almost worth them doing it just if I could catch them. If I could break their fingers.
What's the deal with this? What is this called?
I forget what this is called.
What is this?
I just walked past here and took a bunch of pictures because it just looks so unusual.
You know, there's actually the name is under
Yeah, the name's like
under
in the
all that.
terrazzo.
It's in the terrazzo, but I forgot what it. I think it starts with an H. It might be Hudson. Does that sound
Is this
familiar?
the HUD?
Does that sound familiar to you?
So?
I don't have a great memory for things I've visually
Should ask
seen.
Ricardo. Is this the?
Is this Hudson's? Is that what this is called? It's okay if you don't remember.
No, this is not Hudson.
It's something with an H, though, right? It's magnificent in any case. You want to walk with us? We're doing a little architecture walk.
No, this was
They're from all the way up to the city hall down here.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, we're going that way, but not far.
We're going this way.
Whatever you like.
This was a men's clothing store, and they did for their 75th anniversary for their 75th anniversary in the mid-50s, 1950s, they restored the Art Deco facade, which was put in to celebrate their 50th anniversary. The department stores here in the late 20s, early 30s, they put on this Art Deco facade because they've been around. They were just like, we started in 1884 at, in the Temple Block, right? Where
At like
Spring and Franklin.
Or like
Spring and Franklin.
New High Street.
Right.
Yeah. Where else are we gonna be?
It's a nice building. Mr. Helen owns it. The guy that owns this building owns it.
Oh,
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was painted gray until
Yeah.
a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, no,
It's absolutely gorgeous. Terracotta, bronze, it's beautiful.
You know what would look good on this is a big bunch of poo brown stucco,
Yeah, let's keep
like our
it.
friend at 735. There's a great gold building there.
cranky
Just got a bunch of stucco
preservationist.
thrown in.
Well, have fun, you all.
You do?
Big.
Enjoy.
You don't want to. There's nothing to see down there.
Right, this is a good question. 19, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and this is where they had the great Isn't this where they had the Art Deco lady in the
Yeah.
and they carved her out?
All right, so let's talk about problems on Broadway, of which there are many. So we don't have time to go down. So all this stuff you see on the street, this is part of Bringing Back Broadway, which is an initiative within CD14 that controls this district, and so I think they're doing this because they want to expand the sidewalks, and they cut down the number of lanes of traffic because they want to bring in a streetcar, which I don't think is going to happen. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so they created this initiative, this entity called Bringing Back Broadway, and they're supposed to be in charge of everything that happens on Broadway at a municipal level. So 3 blocks south of here, at a building we don't have time to go to, the owners ruined it. It's a historic building. They took out a building permit. Building and safety said, okay, but you can't do this and this and this because it's historically significant, and they did it anyway, and now they're under investigation. So my point is that I don't really think the city has any handle on the work being done here, which they claim to, and I'm really worried about the terrazzo sidewalk. So, you're standing on a terrazzo sidewalk, of which there are many. Probably the greatest example of is Clifton's Cafeteria, the terrazzo in front of Clifton's.
I think that's unarguable.
So, what I'm really worried about is they have this stupid gravel thing on top of plastic in pitch, and I don't know what it's supposed to do, but I think the point is after it's been here for 12 months, they're just going to say, okay, everyone thinks this is a really good idea because they haven't shot any city officials and left a note that they've shot them because of this. So it's a really good idea. So we're going to start tearing up all the sidewalks so we can push the sidewalks out to this double white line. And I'm really worried that if they do that, they're going to tear up all the terrazzo. And I'm really worried about that. And anyone that tells me that they've got a handle on it, I think is sorely mistaken.
What happened here?
Okay, so what happened here, and this is one of the few nice things I'll say about the Los Angeles Conservancy, an entity which I'm never impressed with. About 3 years ago, the Los Angeles, so as we just noticed with the building 3 blocks to the south within the last 6 months, about 3 years ago, the owner of this building stripped off some really beautiful Art Deco marble decoration, and they got in trouble for it, which is good. The Conservancy called them out. So Nathan, it was...
Yeah, if you look along the bottom of that center window, which is not really a window, it's just sort of, you can see her little foot, and she was sitting on a globe, and there were these sort of stylized, acanthus leaves, and it was like the super amazing, it was like a naked lady, super Art
beautiful.
Deco. It looked like a 1930s Duesenberg wood ornament or something. And
someone took it away and kept it and
someone
sold
said,
it.
we need more light. We'll carve this out with a developmentally disabled, gallon-drunk 9-year-old with a butter knife, just hacking at it, and it looks like that. Yeah. And yet, they left the lovely $1 million Gold Plaza sign, which adds so much to the street.
Yeah.
So the idea that that any and of course city officials went like, well, so the idea, God bless them, because we all voted for them, so we're to blame. But the idea that they'll say, well, we've got a handle on the terrazzo, it's like,
I don't think so.
That's only as good as far as you can throw it. And the old Latin maxim, principius obsta finem respice, holds true here, which is, resist the beginnings, consider the end. Right. So everyone says like, well, we'll take this a little bit at a time, we'll see what happens. It's like, no, you don't take it a little bit at a time. You draw a line in the sand, a line in the kitty litter, right now, right here, And then you say, no, you don't get to do anything. And people are like, well, you're against the children. What about the children?
I'm against the children.
Yeah, fuck them.
I'm against the children. I'm so against the children. I'm so against the children.
Because if it's the children's fault that we get to just like...
They're going to tear down every 19th century SRO in Skid Row because of the children.
No.
They're going to use, oh, you've got a school nearby. Well, you've got to take this 1896 three-story brick SRO and tear it down because it's the only place sex offenders can live. But now there's a charter school 2 blocks away that just opened 6 months ago, so you can't have sex offenders living there. So we better just tear down the 19th century SRO.
Or we've got to put in, or there's light rail nearby. Because there's light or a train, which isn't even light rail, or is it high-speed rail? High-speed rail, which isn't high-speed at all. Now this is zoned for super high density. We get a density bonus, which is, strictly speaking, a zoning variance, not a density bonus. And therefore, this doesn't meet an SRO, which is like 12 rooms, 18 rooms, because it's from 1896. Doesn't meet density requirements. You got to tear it down and build something that's like 80 people per square foot. Because, the fact of the matter is, everyone says like, oh, we're going to have a total ecological disaster and all this stuff because, blah, blah, blah. It's never going to happen. What's going to happen is people are just going to get used to living in 1,000-foot high towers, 1,000 feet long, wide, and they're just going to learn to live crappily, live less. And, this is Los Angeles. Everyone here is supposed to live in harmony with like an orange tree and a little house with a yard. And none of this like, well, everyone will just have to make do with less. We're Americans. We don't make do with less. We figure it out.
Go to 510.
It's all right.
Let's go to 510. You're almost there.
Damn it. Yeah.
They are going to tear down all the SROs in Skid Row. Which I think is really sad. It's Skid Row. It's Skid Row. Skid Row.
And the color green and the letter L. I won't have them. Okay. Well, first let's stop here because I want to.
You want to try on a dress?
I want to try on that dress. I will look fabulous in it.
You will look fabulous in it. Blue is your color, Nathan.
First, I want to draw your attention, which is why we got this oblique angle. That's 510. And if you look up at the brick on the side, now there's the gray stripe. So there's the Roxy Theater. Next door to that, to the north, there's the gray stripe on the side of that brick building. That's where there used to be a brick chimney. And then right along the top, it said FORVE dash PE, TTEBONE. That's the original 1905 paint that says Ford Pettibone. Ford Pettibone was an electric and gas fitting supply company. They contracted R.B. Young in 1905 to come in and build that building, which we have an image of in its construction. So there it is, under construction. And what's amazing is, unlike, for example, the Cliftons, where they took off this whole top parapet, Robert Brown Young actually designed this with no parapet. The indents up there are built into the building. None of the stuff that can fall off during an earthquake. We've got all the original massing, all the original fenestration. It's just been changed. Down here it used to have, those sort of classic sort of glass bricks along the top to let in the light, and the full windows here. They mucked it up down there at some point. But otherwise, it's in, I guess we could stand over there and get a full frontal on it if Kimmy picks up the camera. I know she likes to. Let's go stand in front of her.
Yeah, let's go stand in front of her.
Yeah, right on the side it said Ford Pettibone gas.
Filas estrechas, pasa a mirar arriba. Cupón de descuento de $10 a $60 descuento. Jordan, Nike, Harley, Davidson.
Nathan, no,
Vans,
come here.
Converse,
This
todo,
one,
todo.
this one.
Pasa a mirar amigo.
Oh, that's me.
Ropa de Nike,
Yeah.
a mitad de precio, compadre. Chamarras de piel, a mitad de precio. Pasa a mirar.
I think you're going to have to go on a juice fast.
I think my 6-year-old would be very confused what Daddy was wearing.
I'm sorry, keep going.
Confusion leads to knowledge. Exactly. That's where all knowledge comes from. You're doing her a disservice if you don't pick that up.
1894, huh?
Which this?
Where the ornaments that were removed that look so plain.
This is 1905.
Oh, 1905. I thought you said the paint was from 1894. Did I say that? Anyway.
What?
That's what you said about the side.
I think he said 1905.
Well,
If he
I might have
misspoke.
misheard.
I might have misspoke because I'm just yammering.
Come around and join Richie.
No. I think what happened is I was talking about the O.T. Johnson block and building, the first of which, the 1896 was Robert Brown Young, and the 1902 was John Parkinson. And then Orson Johnson's younger brother, A.P., published that Robert Brown Young they were going to demolish the 1902 Parkinson structure and put up the Robert Brown Young building. I think that's where you got confused. I think that's where you got 1896. All right, Nathan, take it over. This is a great building. This is a great building. Before you talk, I want to make an aside. I think as you get farther north on Broadway, there are 3 or 4 other structures like this. Early 20th century built, the upper floors were built for warehousing purposes. So you've just got this wide open, whole floor, wide open, and they're just converting them into lofts, and people are just renting out the whole floor, and they're wide open, and there are very few columns, and I think it's you can see it, and they're the first buildings, as we've watched Broadway reactivate on the upper floors, these 5-6-story buildings with the warehouse layout, they're the ones that go first. They're the ones that get developed first because it's a lead pipe sitch. Go ahead.
I spoke too soon when I said that it didn't lose something to the parapet ordinance. There is just a wee bit of parapet at top that was there. But unlike say the Cliftons, which is the Robert Brown Young, it didn't lose its full lineup there. And one of the things that we've been discussing on these tours, after the parapet ordinance in 1949, they started pulling the tops off of all these buildings, all the ornamental gewgaws, all of their cornices and whatnot. And now that we live in a scientifically enlightened age, we could, in theory, start to with the photos that we have. For example, the Bradbury had those wonderful sort of a crenellated parapet at top. We could reattach all these things made out of something super strong, super light, super attachable.
Like
Gordon has a rep that can do that, Nathan.
And this man, Mr. Pattison, has a guy that actually just makes it out of like dental foam. You attach it to he's like, that's not the
right. The guy that took my impression. He told me he worked on the Bradbury building.
This is genius. This is going to happen. We're going to have old Los Angeles back. The Clark Hotel, which has been undergoing renovation by the Chetbrits forever, used to have these wonderful, giant, crazy urns atop every corner. Like, those would be amazing to look at. Anyway, so I think
Return the urn!
Return the urn! We're going to go outside the Clark Hotel. We're going to dress like urns. Well, I kind of already do. Okay.
No, before you start, I want to ask you a question.
Why that?
So, why wouldn't you just take out all these beautiful wood windows and replace them with vinyl? Wouldn't that be better?
Why not just tear it down and put in a green building? Thank you.
I thought I set that up really nicely.
Yes. Vinyl windows are the devil. I don't even have time to go into that. I got a moon gig tonight. I gotta go home with it. Okay, so look at that. Huh?
Beautiful windows.
And beautiful, remarkable, amazing, original. Well, the fenestration's correct. The windows are original. That one there is kind of falling apart. There's no such thing as a wood window. I swear to God, no matter how termite eaten, no matter how badly it's falling apart, there's no such thing as a wood window that cannot be fixed. If you don't believe me, when I moved into my house in 1907, all the wood windows were totally shot.
You moved in 1907?
You moved in 2000.
It was built in 1907.
You moved in 2000.
I moved in 2001. And I've rebuilt every single damn window. They look beautiful. They all move up and down beautifully. And everyone said the same thing. It's like, what? Put in the vinyl windows already. It's I got a guy, get them for you wholesale. The whole thing. It's like, no.
Have a sip of tea.
Well, don't do it.
These are beautiful.
Teenage suicide. So I think this is. I mean, okay. I haven't done enough study on Young to really say with authority, but I think, my own personal opinion, I'd say this is Young's. Honestly, I think it's one of his best.
Oh yeah.
Fully realized, and as far as an early modern building goes for Los Angeles, I mean, this should have throngs of for every schmuck who comes to LA and says like, I want to see the Dodge House. Oh, Irving Gill. Oh, they tore it down. I mean, that was a remarkable house. But I mean, as far as early modernism goes, this is as for 1905. This is as clean and pure and as amazing as anything that people go to Chicago to see. Yes, the terrible stuff that they did to the bottom floor, but nothing that can't be.
Do you notice the first bay window on the second floor? It's curved to the edge. Beautiful.
And again, these were all because this is for a gas and electric fixture company. Share. It's OASD.
Metro. 6th and Olive, 6th and Hill, Metro station. Maybe? Yeah, that's there. No, but there's a Metro. Nathan, do you think the facade had glazed brick on it?
Oh, absolutely. That's another thing. Is that's all glazed pressed brick, and I'm sure that's just been painted over terribly.
So if you sandblasted it, you'd find early 20th century glazed brick, which is graffiti resistant,
which is completely graffiti resistant, which is glorious. And we still have some great glazed brick buildings.
Bradbury being these early 20th century buildings with glazed brick are really important because LA Press Brick built them. LA Press Brick is where Men's Central Jail is right now, Boucher and Vignes. And they did up until the 20s. They're the ones that really did all the heavy lifting for glazed brick and terracotta. Yeah, they're very important.
They actually say Young right on the building. It's saying Young.
That's fun if they did.
It did, yeah.
And this Huarache place is supposed to be really good, apparently.
Yes, it is supposed to be really good. Yeah. All right, shall we move up to 4th and Broadway? All right, let's go.
Was it shoes or food?
Yes.
Both. It's not that good. I can't even tell.
So good. I'll eat my shoe.
Am I having a priest's sandal? But it's delicious.
Okay, so not Robert Brown Young, but look at this slate. I think it's slate. It's gorgeous stone. So I guess they're going to turn this into apartments on the upper floors, and look, they just got it the entire first floor. It's just stripped. A movie theater used to be in the ground floor of this building. When it opened in 24, they had a movie theater. And the movie theater closed during the Depression, and they converted it into storefront, into retail frontage. But it's a gorgeous building. I'm really happy they're working on it. I'm really curious to see what they do. It's a beautiful building. Nathan, I'm going to start. Okay, so let's just stand in front of it. Let's just go another 20 feet.
In front of the Mason building?
The Wilson building.
The Wilson? Yeah.
So, mysterious Wilson. Yeah, let's take advantage of this awful. So this is interesting. So we're standing in front of a building which, from the looks of it, was probably built in the last couple years of the 19th century, right? Maybe first couple years of the 20th century. And if you look at the CRA historic surveys, they say this is the Wilson Block by Robert Brown Young, and it's 18. Right. This is not the building, right? This is not that building at all.
When the Wilson Block was supposed to be 1905.
1905. Okay, this is not that building at all.
Can't be.
Is it? That's not this building at all. No. So we don't know. It's an unanswered question. We don't know what the answer is. But this is where the Wilson block was. This is not this building at all. So we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened.
We'll figure it out.
Not this. We'll figure it out. This is not this building.
Could it just be a bureaucratic error?
I don't know.
I don't think it's that building.
It's not that building. Oh, sure, it's possible, but a number of independent sources have cited this as Robert Brown Young, so I don't know what's up. We're gonna have to work on it. It's these questions take a lot of time, and we don't have a lot of time, so it takes. But it's a nice building. I don't know. We don't know any. We don't know.
But it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, this.
I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Everyone says this is the Wilson block, but it's obviously not. So, but this building's obviously pretty old, and the Wilson block is 1905.
So why did the? Help me out.
Can I hold your tea for you?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So why did the Wilson block?
No one can understand you, dear.
No one can understand me anyway. So why did the Wilson block? If it's built in 1905, why did it have this? I mean, if this is can't be any later than.
Right.
Yeah, 1915, 1920. Why then would it have had the? Well, nobody liked big windows at that point.
No.
This is actually
that was part of
all the way over there.
the Broadway. Yeah.
Because
So
the Wilson block runs all the way from here. This end is that end, all the way to there. This is the end of that low building that's the same height. And this part, the very middle where the entryway would be, if that is the very middle, would be right in the middle.
We don't know.
I don't know. And so this is the Slauson block, also Robert Brown Young.
While we're standing here, does everyone see this one-story building with the steel facade? I guess that's stucco. The sort of poo green stucco facade. All right, that's the former site of Robert Brown Young's Mason block, which is 1896. That was a 4-story structure Young built, and that was demolished in the 30s. Another building was put in its place, and they took off all the stories except the first one. And now Pacific Investment, which is headed by Isaac and Eric Schomoff, have bought the land, and they want to put up a 35-story tower. So they want to, right there. They want to put up a 35-story tower, residential tower with retail in the ground floor.
Right. Well, actually,
that's a giant project.
I think it's about 4 or 5 stories, and then it's set back.
Yeah.
Ways, and then it's 30 stories.
So that's going to be a major. All right, let's walk up to the Johnson building and walk. What I want to do, we're going to talk about this building. We're going to talk about that corner in a minute. But what I want you to do as an exercise, because right behind me was where the Mason block was, and this is where they're going to put up a 35-story tower. What I want you to do is I want you to look over the building onto the Braley block and the Stowell behind it, and I want you to tell me what century you're in, right? It's a great vista, right? It's a really great vista. Really, really great. Yeah. It's a great vista.
Building existed.
That's Parkinson. Braley Bach, I think it's 1912. So it's a great vista, and they're gonna it's all gonna be gone when that tower goes up.
What's interesting about the tower too is that it actually, it's a long flat tower like this, and it runs from there to there. So it's only about like 4 or 5 rooms wide, but it's just this long flat thing. So they make sure that they block the entire thing, which is sad because you look at any old picture shot from Bunker Hill this way, you always see the Braley. I think it's pretty actually early. I think it's like 1902, actually.
Is it because they want all that sidewalk?
What?
Is it because they want all that sidewalk? Like they want all that street space? Is that why?
They want to go in.
It's because they want, but I don't understand the question. I mean,
so the footprint of the building.
They're just, I don't know.
Why not?
That's what they decide.
You have retail on the first floor?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
First couple floors, yeah. before I get started on the Johnson building and block, this building across the street with the green awning that says for lease, that's the Nelson block. That's 1894. Yeah, that's a very old building. That used to be originally 5 stories, then they made it 7 stories. And the Sylmar quake, the top 4 floors were set vacant from 71 on to 86. And in 86, they started taking down the floors, and it's now just 2 stories.
If you're ever looking at old photos of Broadway, in a lot of them, like old postcards and stuff, there's always a building that you always probably notice because it's got a big like lady's foot on the roof. I don't know, maybe I always notice. I like ladies' feet, but that's the building that always had the lady's foot on like the top of the 5th floor. And I always wondered like, what building was that? And then I finally figured it out. It's like, oh, they chopped it down.
So that distressed brick wall is from the 1880s?
That's the building next door.
That is to say, yeah, they built that. That building is a later building that was built against the 1890s building. Here, it's rounded on the front.
It's the tree building. Okay, so this building's interesting. Does everyone see the dead tree?
Oh yeah.
It just died. I know. So that tree.
Called the dead tree building.
So
Is that a bristlecone pine?
I don't know. What?
Who's got an arborist around here? Give me an arborist. Stat.
It's really sad. So what happened is that building, they were doing a lot of excavation, and the owners didn't want to pay to haul away the soil, the excavations in the 60s. So they just put all this soil on the top floor. They literally just loaded the top floor of the building with tons and tons of topsoil. I'm not kidding you.
That's like an unusually bad idea.
Okay, it wasn't topsoil, but they just had all this dirt from excavation, and you have to pay to get rid of dirt, right? And they're like, well, we're not using the top floor, so we'll put it there, and the tree's roots grew into the soil. And for decades, that entire facade of the building was covered in stucco, and they had murals. So the building was just totally disregarded. The ground floor was rented for retail. The owners just ignored the top floors. There were like 10 tons of soil on the top floor that the tree's roots were growing into. And it just got purchased. They took off the stucco and they've exposed the facade, and the tree had to go. But let this be a lesson, because I go to my Bhagavad Gita study class routinely, and the Bhagavad Gita study class I attend originally began up the street at the Metropolitan Building, the next tall building up the street. In chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that human consciousness occupies... Okay, Krishna explains that there's the tree of life. The tree of life grows upside down. Its roots grow up into heaven. Okay? And then Krishna comes and chops down the tree, right? Because it's the beginning of the next cycle of human consciousness. We all evolve. So every cycle, Krishna comes with an axe, chops down the tree, and the tree dies, and so the roots disappear. The negative space that the roots occupy, this is where human consciousness forms. Okay? So as we go through whatever cycle we're in, human consciousness takes up the spaces of the root where the roots were. So everyone think about human consciousness and Krishna when you see that dead tree, because its roots are that right. The roots are now dying, and there's negative space in that dirt. Okay, that's what I think about on my way to Bhagavad Gita study class.
That's roughly,
think about that tree.
That's roughly analogous to the
The Norse. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at the end of the tour. The Johnson block and the Johnson building. So, does everyone see this really awful yellow metal fence?
Unfortunately.
Okay, so the building at the corner is the 1902 John Parkinson Orson Thomas Johnson building. Okay, 7 stories. They took it down to 2 after the Sylmar quake. Next to it is 1 story of the original 1896 Robert Brown Young Orson Thomas Johnson block. Okay, 1896 Orson Thomas Johnson, for his 4th building with Robert Brown Young, commissioned this business block. This was in 1896. This is roughly the limits of the business district.
really, downtown starts at Temple, and where City Hall is. You can't really, City Hall just the other side of the Bradbury building.
Well, no.
Well,
City Hall's the other side of the Criminal Courts building, which is the big thing that looks like an air conditioner.
Okay, if you can see City Hall in 1896, that would have been the epicenter of business life in downtown. So the build-a-block here is very forward-thinking because downtown is expanding, land is cheap. You're thinking ahead. We're going to build this block in a couple of. Maybe maybe people aren't going to want to move in now, but in a couple of years, this will be part of the sphere of influence of downtown. And
never happened.
It did. No, because just a couple of years later, Orson Thomas Johnson decides he's going to hire John Parkinson to build a 7-story structure right next to his 1896 business block. And if you look at photos, as I showed you, it's a really interesting way. End of 19th century architecture in downtown Los Angeles, the beginning of 20th century. The 1902 Parkinson structure is very modern, and the 1896 Brown building, only the ground floor of which survives, is a very Victorian structure. And it's just, we came to the fire. The good thing about the fire is that it exposed more of the extant Parkinson building. The bad news of the fire is that the building is uninhabitable. It has been uninhabitable since the last 7 years now. The fire was like 6, 7 years.
Right. It's been completely open to the elements.
Sassoon family owns these 2 buildings. They own a lot of property on Broadway, and they're terrible property owners. I'm the slumlord's grandson. They're slumlords. I know. Okay. Okay. I intimately involved in my grandfather's slum empire. That's the definition of a slumlord. Trust me. Promise you. So they're geniuses, and I have no idea what's going to happen to it. But they're 2 great buildings, and again, you can find pictures, and I showed you slides. It's a very interesting meditation, sort of the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, right at that corner. I hope they bring it back. I don't know.
Make a good museum.
It doesn't bode well that they're going to build a 35-story tower across the street. I don't think the Sassoons are thinking, let's restore the top 3 stories. I don't think that's what they're thinking.
I think they're thinking that's going to be the Museum of Los Angeles Architectural History. And you're going to be its first
Hey, you never know.
Chief curator. I'll be the director. You be the chief curator.
Right. You never know when some crazy grandson is going to be in charge, or granddaughter.
I think the grandkids are thinking, if the Showmops are going to build a 35-story tower, let's build a 50-story tower. How much money?
75.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a lot of time left for the O.T. Johnson building.
I'm pulling for the great-grandchildren.
Do you have any idea what that sign was on the corner of the building?
No, I don't. No. But one could do a lot of good work with ghost signs on Broadway. I'm sure if you ran that through some filters in Photoshop, you could easily begin to see.
Because it looks over 100 years old.
It's beautiful.
I'll tell you, after the Lancashire was built, they did great at 7th. They did great like glass plate photography, right about 1905, and they would shoot right up Broadway. And when I was on the USC site, they have photo, like old glass plates and stuff, scanned in very high resolution. So you could zoom right on in there. And I was looking for original shots of the Fauve Pettibone ghost sign at 510. And I found them, they looked terrific. So I bet if you just got on there and you just zoomed a little further up the street, and you wouldn't be able to see it because I bet that the Parkinson would be in the way.
Yeah, but that was 7 stories originally. Yeah.
You know, but people used to they loved to go.
Maybe that was before the Parkinson. Oh, I guess not. Because
1902. Well, that's pretty early. 1902. The Parkinson building is 1902. So that's pretty early.
But people still put all over.
They would put signs in between buildings like that. I mean, somebody had to be able to see it for them to paint it.
Well, a lot of times, perhaps where the Casa India is, that wouldn't have been like a building, because the Robert Brown Young only goes up to the end of the yellow, so that would be enough of a gap to see it. It depends when that was built. I have to.
You're gonna think about it. All right,
about it.
so
I'll find
we're gonna end the tour with the great question: what's the oldest building I can see? It's a very good question. Okay, if you look straight due north. Well, it's not due north at all. But if you look straight up the street, it's not due north at all. You see just the top pediment of what is called the Pan American Building. It's directly across from the Bradbury Building. Everyone sees the Bradbury Building. It's the large brick and sandstone structure at about, if you're looking straight up Broadway, it's about 1 o'clock. If you were to look at 11 o'clock, you would see the 6-story Pan American Building, and that is 1896. The Bradbury Building is 1894. Pan American Building is 1896. You could just see the tip of it, and I think that's it. Every other building on this block is after 1900. So the Bradbury Building wins, and the Pan American Building is just a couple years later. And if you actually go across the street a third into the Wedding Chapel is 1896. It's the original Robinson's department store. Began life as a 4-story building for the Boston Dry Goods Company. And then the Boston Dry Goods Company became Robinson's. And so the Wedding Chapel is actually the remnants of an 1896 building. And Kim, why don't you tell everyone what happened to that building after the Pan American exhibition in San Diego? So Robinson's moves in 1912. They start moving south, and eventually they move on to 7th in the 20s. So the building's empty by the beginning of World War I. Their original structure is empty.
Beginning of World War I?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. You've got this fantastic fair up in San Francisco, the Panama Pacific International Exposition, which people think about the beautiful architecture and the City of Lights and all the magnificent stuff, but it was also a fantastic, amazing midway freak show. And a lot of people who went to the fair went to see the fat lady, they went to see the tattooed women and men, they went to see the hoochie coochie dancers, they went to see all this marvelous stuff, they went to see the cat shows, the chicken shows, the weird stuff. And because all of these great entertainers were here and the fair shut down, they were here in California, it was absolutely natural to put out a call to all of the best midway entertainers, the sideshows, bring them down to Southern California. And so that became essentially the sidebar to the PPIE. The fair was over, they folded up their tents, and all of the weird attractions were here for a couple of months. And so you had one entire floor which was nothing but supposedly Turkish women. It was basically a harem. You could hang out in there, you could smoke a hookah and watch women dance. There were, of course, cat shows, and my favorite thing was the Baby Bollinger exhibit. And talk about ripped from the headlines. Baby Bollinger was like a month earlier in Chicago. This poor child had been born with some developmental issues, and unfortunately he was born in the hospital to a surgeon, delivered by a surgeon who was very interested in notions of eugenics. And this guy not only convinced the parents that this child would, without doubt, become a criminal because of his developmental issues, that it was best to let him die, and then promptly went to the newspapers and talked about this wonderful thing he had done. And it became a big talking point nationally. So the Baby Bollinger exhibit was actually a wax model of this poor child with a sort of an educational program about what was the dialogue that was happening surrounding eugenics. And you could pay an extra nickel to go in and look at the wax figure of Baby Bollinger, which I think it must still be out there somewhere, but no one probably realizes what it is. So if anyone ever finds a wax baby that looks a little wrong, call me. We'll do some research. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. We did it. If there are any questions, you can ask Nathan or I or Kim. Next month, we're going to do this again. I think we're going to, what are we going to focus on? We'll figure it out.
I'm going to be at my company meeting. So
okay, I'll do it. I'll take care of it.
We'll bring Robot Nathan.
What?
Robot Nathan will do your parts.
Next month we're gonna give this tour next month, but we're not going to focus on young. We're going to focus on the first half hour of this tour will be the last talk at the LAVA Salon. We're gonna have 3 talks, not 2. And Gordon, you went to an event for OpenStreetMap about 2 months ago, and you entered in all this information about your lost neighborhood of Bunker Hill. And Charlotte Wolter is going to come in, and for the first half hour of this tour, we'll be upstairs getting a lecture on how you can map lost neighborhoods. So you can go in with your smartphone or your computer and put in information about old buildings and missing streets. And so the first part of this tour will be that, and then we'll go out on the street with our smartphones and do a little recording. So we'll just focus just on a block or two, like from 7th to 5th.
Entering data.
Yeah, entering data. And then when you come back in August, we'll pick some more Robert Brown Young buildings.
Sweet.
We'll probably do, we've got a couple to the south. We've got some, yeah, anyway, we'll keep you posted. So everyone, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sean, we're going to miss
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Now we get to saunter back. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for getting.
Nathan, don't go anywhere.